The morning mail clattered into the box like it knew bad news was inside. Grandpa's name was stamped across a thin envelope. Received 0317 R1207, a $50 fine for overgrown grass. His mower still sat warm on the porch blades clean. Across the street, the HOA president, Clive Moreland, leaned on his mailbox, coffee-steaming eyes fixed on ours. "Policy's policy," he said, too casual for something so petty. Grandpa's hands trembled not from age but from insult. The ink bled blue beneath his thumb, a signature twice printed, once as president, once as attorney. That's when I decided to walk to the gate myself. The envelope was already sweating through when I pulled it from the rusty mailbox. Off-white. Windowed. The stamp hit me first. Received 0317, February 207. Grandpa's name under the window. A bold $50 printed like a bruise. Coffee's still hot. Grandpa called from the porch. The radio whispered farm prices behind him, a thin AM hiss. He watched my face and set the mug down. "It's from the association," I said. "No warning notice?" He wiped his hands on his jean shirt. "Open it." The paper crackled. "Violation lawn maintenance overgrowth visible from public right-of-way. Fine $50. Pay within 10 days. I turned the page. Signed, Clive Moreland, President. Grandpa looked past me at the yard. The mower sat under the mesquite tank, still warm from yesterday. Overgrowth my foot. "Paper doesn't lie," I said, but my voice tightened. Then I caught the byline underneath the signature. "Legal consult, Moreland and Tate." Grandpa frowned. Same Moreland, same spelling. I traced the embossed seal with my thumb. The paper smelled like toner and a little like metal. We'll ask him. We walked to the front gate. Hinges chirped. Dew clung to the fence line like sweat. A neighborhood bulletin fluttered on the board across the street. BBQ fundraiser next Saturday, held by 2 mismatched pushpins. Grandpa kept the notice tight in his fist. Silent beat. "Clive," I called. His bungalow sat 2 lots down, perfect hedges flag bracketed to the porch toolbox open on his bench like a staged photo. He appeared in a pressed shirt collar, stiff as a receipt. "Morning," Clive said. "Lovely day." Grandpa lifted the letter. "You fined me for a lawn that isn't overgrown." Clive didn't look at the grass. He looked at the red stamp. "We enforce standards. You're within appeal rights." "Why, no warning?" I asked. "Bylaw, February 1207 says written notice must precede a fine." Clive tisked. "We posted notice. Maybe the wind took it. Wind doesn't sign your name twice." He held out his hand. I passed the sheet. He read, without reading lips barely moving. "This is a simple matter," he said. "Pay the 50, and it ends." Ends what Grandpa asked. A made-up rule. "Rules aren't made up," Clive said, smile bright and hollow. "They're adopted. Policy is policy." Minnie Cliff. Policy is policy. I took out my pocket notebook and wrote the notice number and time. "We're not refusing standards," I said. "We're refusing shortcuts." He glanced at the mower by our mesquite. "You mow late. People complain about noise." "Yesterday afternoon," I said. "Ask the mail carrier." She waved when I finished. Clive tilted his head like a man measuring angles. "You can appeal at the next meeting." Grandpa's jaw worked. "I spent 30 years sharpening mower blades for men who didn't know a deck height from their elbow. This yard's clean." Clive folded the letter along a crease that wasn't there. Appeal or pay. The radio hiss bled from the porch. Somewhere a grill lid clanged. I smelled lighter fluid ghosts from last night's dinner. "Why is your firm's name on the fine?" I asked. "Legal consult line, Moreland and Tate." Clive's smile, tightened teeth still showing. "Standard practice. We retain counsel for compliance." "You retained yourself," I said. "I'm advising the board," he said. "For clarity." "And for fees," I said. My tone stayed level, but the word pressed. Conflict of interest. Clive's gaze flicked to Grandpa's hand on the paper. "You're welcome to file a concern," he said. "Forms at the clubhouse. Then put this on the record," I said. No prior notice was posted. The yard was trimmed. The mower was run yesterday. We request voiding the fine per Part R 1207. He handed the sheet back to Grandpa as if it were damp laundry. Denied. Grandpa breathed in through his nose, a slow count in a slow chest. He nodded once like a man taking a measurement he didn't like. I kept my voice even. What evidence shows overgrowth? Observation, Clive said. Officer review. Name of the officer anonymous for protection. From grass clippings, I said. He shrugged. Folks can be spirited. Many Cliff anonymous grass complaints don't trump a stamp. Clive tapped the letter. 10 days, he said. Don't make this bigger than it is. Grandpa stared him down. Bigger already. Clive shifted his weight, scanned the street, and found the neighbor across the way pretending to adjust a porch flag. He smoothed his shirt. Good morning to you both, he said and turned. Hold on, I said. One last thing. He paused. I unfolded the second page fully. In the small block of text near the bottom, tiny type most folks don't read. I saw it. The same looping M, same slope on the L. 2 signatures. Why is your name here? Twice I asked. Once as president, once as legal consult. Clive's eyes clicked to the line and back to me. Clerical convenience, he said. We'll clean it up on the next batch. Clean it up, I repeated. He took a step back, polished, smile fixed. Enjoy your day. Grandpa's fingers tightened on the notice until it creased into a tent. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. You ever mow, Clive? He asked. I have people, Clive said and walked. We stood at the gate. The fence posts caught the early sun. The boundary pin under the corner rock glinted like a bead of solder, a quiet dot that said where one thing ended and another began. Grandpa handed me the letter. We appeal, he said. We do more than that, I said. I took a picture of the header, then the signature block, then the stamp. Received 03-17 R12-07. Filled my screen like a road sign. Paper doesn't lie. Grandpa said softer now. It remembers, I said. Minnie Cliff. His signature sits on both lines. By noon, the fine had come back nailed to the gate with a strip of clear tape sunlight burning the plastic until it curled. The paper flapped once, sharp and red against the wood like a scarlet letter. Across the street, Mrs. Holt stood beside her mailbox phone halfway raised as if she were checking reception. Others watched through porch rails. BBQ smoke from the Holt's yard drifted across the drive, sweet and heavy. I could smell lighter fluid again, same as last night. Grandpa stayed on the porch, arms folded. You sure you want to start this? I just want him to admit the line I said. Once. He nodded toward the driveway. Then make him read it. I took the notice off the gate and smoothed it on the postbox lid. Hard-0207 stared up like a witness. Minnie Cliff. The same code they pretended didn't exist. Clive Moreland walked up the sidewalk in his pressed shirt, again sleeves barely wrinkled clipboard under his arm. You're blocking the easement, he said. It's my driveway. It's the association's right-of-way, he answered, tone clipped. I held up the page. Then you'll know the bylaw. Section 1207 requires notice before fines. He smiled like a man being filmed. That section's outdated. Outdated, I said. It's on your own letterhead. A small circle of neighbors gathered near the fence. Phones rose higher. Clive laughed, softly shaking his head. You people don't understand procedure. Mrs. Holt stepped closer. I pay dues. Maybe I should. He adjusted his clipboard. The rules are clear if you read the current addendum. Which addendum, I asked. The 2019 update. I flipped the sheet over. No update cited. Just your firm's footer, Moreland and Tate Legal Consult, HOA Compliance Division. He stopped smiling. The only sound was the low sizzle from Mrs. Holt's grill and a mower 2 houses away. Silent beat the faint click of someone starting a phone recording. Policy isn't rude, I said. It's a boundary. Viral. Quote, policy isn't rude. It's a boundary. Clive cleared his throat. You're taking this out of context. Then give us context. He looked around the semicircle of faces. This association depends on volunteers. Mistakes happen. Let's not dramatize a lawn ticket. It's not a ticket, I said. It's a lien starter. Your signature starts the clock for collection." He blinked. "That's an exaggeration." I pointed to the small gray text at the bottom. Line 7. Failure to pay may result in lien enforcement proceedings. Minnie, Cliff. His own ink cornered him. Mrs. Holt lowered her phone. "That's harsh, Clive." He turned slightly toward her. "Ma'am, enforcement keeps property values stable. Stable for who I asked. The lawyer who signs both sides." A flicker crossed his face. "Watch yourself. I am," I said. "So are they." I nodded toward the cluster of lenses. He tried to laugh it off. "I'm not here for theater," no, I said. "You're here for procedure. Let's follow it." I unfolded the notice again and began reading aloud, slow and deliberate, Homeowners Association of Lang Creek Notice of Violation, Bashar 12-07, Maintenance and Landscaping. Authorized signatory, Clive Moreland, President. Legal consult, Clive Moreland, Esquire. The word esque hung in the heat like a spark. The lawn went silent. Even the smoke paused, caught in still air. Minnie, Cliff. The lawn itself stopped breathing. Clive's clipboard trembled once before he tucked it tight under his arm. "That's internal formatting." "Formatting that doubles your authority," I said. "Are you accusing me of misconduct?" "I'm reading your document," I said. "Your rules." Mrs. Holt folded her arms. "You wrote those rules, didn't you?" He looked at her, then at me. I asked it plainly, voice steady. "Do you know who wrote those bylaws, Cliff? Do you know who wrote those bylaws?" The question hung there heavier than the smell of smoke. Behind me, the tool bench glinted in the sun. Every wrench lined like punctuation waiting for the next line. Hayes County Government Center smelled like paper dust and floor wax. A box fan clicked overhead like a stubborn clock. Fluorescence hummed. I set my dented coffee thermos on the counter and slid the notice and photos to the woman at intake. She glanced over her readers. "Research property," I said. "Lang Creek subdivision. HOA filings, liens, and any council of record." She stamped a slip and pointed down the hall. "Archives. Window B. Ask for Harris." The archive room was cooler, a cave of gray cabinets and metal spines. A cork bulletin board carried notices about passport hours and a charity BBQ. A pushpin dangled like it was giving up. Behind window B, a man with a tidy beard fed microfilm into a reader with the care of a jeweler. "Harris?" I asked. He looked up, eyes bright but patient. "Harris will do." "What are we fishing for? Proof," I said. "HOA president fined my grandfather $50. Same name appears as attorney on the fine." Harris made a sound halfway between a whistle and a sigh. "That's a mighty long loop." He motioned to a stool. "Let's not guess. Let's look." He cranked the reader. The film shivered under glass. Street names flashed like old parade banners: Lang Creek Drive, Windmill Spur, Cedar Post. He kept his voice low. "Subdivision plat filing year. Here." He tapped the screen. "Book 91, page 118. He slid a plat overlay from a drawer translucent and stiff, printed with lines like veins. "We'll sit this on top when we find the covenants." I unscrewed the thermos cap. Coffee breathed up sharp and burnt. "Thanks for helping." He shrugged. "Paper likes to be read. Most folks don't. That's why I have job security. Minnie Cliff paper likes to be read." We worked the crank. Pages leapt bylaws, amendment indices, board rosters. Harris stopped on a list of officers, Moreland Clive, then rolled forward to a binder reference Compliance Council, Moreland and Tate. I felt my jaw tighten. "There it is. Don't marry a hunch," Harris said. "Date it first." He slid a drawer open, pulled a long brown envelope, and shook out a copy of the Declaration of Covenants. "This is your anchor. Now let's find your storm." We set the plat overlay across the covenant page. Text ghosted through the translucent grid, an address block a signature page. "Look," I said. A small smudge near the bottom bent like a checkmark, same tilt as the signature on my photo of the notice. Harris leaned in. "Ink habit," he said. "Some people drag the pen right at the L." He toggled the lamp on the reader. The smudge shone oily. Happens when someone signs while standing. Like at a folding table, I said, or a gate. He reached for a compliance filings drawer and pulled a microfilm roll labeled 2019 HOA Enforcement, Counsel of Record. Let's see if counsel repeats. The spool clicked into place. He spun the wheel. The film jumped, then settled into rows of tiny documents. The fan overhead clicked louder, keeping time. Harris slowed. There. A form filled half the screen. Notice of violation 1207. Same template as our letter. He magnified the footer. Moreland and Tate, HOA Compliance Division. He toggled again, bringing the signature block into crisp black. Authorized signatory Clive Moreland, President. Underneath, smaller legal consult C. Moreland Esquire. My mouth went dry. Both lines. Harris didn't say anything. He just adjusted the focus until the loops of the initials felt like they might cut glass. The fan clicked. The film spun. Then abruptly he stopped the wheel. The machine's hum faded to a thin coil of silence. Silent beat, the microfilm stopped spinning. Harris tapped the screen with the eraser end of a pencil. You see the date codes? Same month, I said. Fine issued on the 5th. Counsel intake on the 7th. Same docket. Not illegal by itself, he said. Voice careful. Bad optics. But, he pulled a second envelope. If they sent a collection packet without prior notice, then your Part 112-07 is more than etiquette. I slid the notice toward him. He lined the stamp with the date on screen. Received, 03-17, glowed like a marker on a night road. The records don't blink, he said. I breathed once slow. Say that again? He didn't. He was already loading another roll, liens and releases 2020 to 2023. He spun. I watched street names flicker lots with liens lots released. Then he stopped a third time. There he said, a pre-lien notice template. Same footer, same counsel block. He lined up the address, not ours, but our street. He pointed to the signature again. 2 lines, same initials, same drag on the L. He flicked to the next image. Lien filing notice and the counsel block again. Read C. Moreland, Esq. So the president signs the violation. I said, then the attorney him opens the collection channel. That's how it reads, Harris said. Ask the board for their conflict policy. If they don't have one, the judge will loan them his. I found my voice. What do we do next? Harris smiled a little. You don't yell on the curb. You put it in the file. He pulled a formal grievance form from a rack and slid it across. Write facts. 10 lines. Attach copies. He watched me fill the first 2. No prior notice as required under Tartar 12-07. Yard trimmed day before fine. Witness available. My pen hesitated. Write the thing you're worried you'll sound angry saying, he said. I wrote, President and counsel appear to be the same individual. He nodded. Now we attach. He clipped the notice my photos and 3 printouts he had spit from the reader enlarged signature blocks, footer lines, date stamps. He laid them in order precise as a machinist. Why the order, I asked. Because chaos makes bad evidence, he said. And this, he thumbed the stack until the pages squared, isn't chaos. Mini cliff. Chaos makes bad evidence. The clerk assistant slid open the window slot. Need anything else, Mr. Harris? A file number for a concerned citizen, he said, and a timestamp. She took the stack like it might break. The clock on the wall clicked 1 minute forward. The printer coughed. Then the rubber stamp came down with a soft, heavy certainty. Received. 0317 inked across the grievance like a belt. Harris handed me the top copy. Grievance on record. Ask for a hearing. If they don't schedule one, ask louder. How loud? On mic, he said. The hall with bad lights. The clubhouse. He nodded. Bring neighbors. Bring that lady with the camera from across the street. Bring patients. He slid a business card across the counter. And bring this if anyone says outdated. It wasn't a card, not really. It was a photocopy of the covenant page, the smudge at the L, like a fingerprint. He circled it with a pen. I slid the copy into a folder with the notice, the photos, and the grievance. The file had weight now, a physical truth no shrug could move. Harris leaned in elbows on the counter. "Son," he said softly, "this goes deeper than a weed fine, Cliff son. This goes deeper than a weed fine." The projector buzzed like a tired hornet as the deed slid onto the glass. The lens washed the page in a pale circle. Under the UV wand, old ink bled a cold blue letters blooming from gray to glacier. Harris, everyone called him that mentor, or not kept one palm on the edge of the platen so the page wouldn't wander. "Hold the overlay," he said. I lined the translucent plat sheet on top streets, threading through paragraphs, lot lines, cross-hatching oaths. The fan in the corner ticked a beat behind the projector. Somewhere in the hallway, a soda machine thumped out a can. "Start with dates," Harris said. "Dates tell you if people were thinking before or after trouble." He slid a metal ruler across the margin, tapping each stamp. The first one glowed up under the UV, received 0317. "County clerk," I said. He moved the ruler 3 inches down. A second stamp ghosted the same numbers. Received 0317, again smaller off-center. "HOA office copy," Harris said. "2 agencies, 1 clock." "Or 1 stamp they borrowed," I said. Harris smiled. "Either way, it narrows the room where things happened." Deputy Inspector Vega stepped through the door with a clipboard, boots quiet on waxed floor. I'd seen her at road hearings, calm and unhurried. "Mr. Harris," she said, "you asked for cross-check on Council of Record logs." "That's us," Harris said. "Lang Creek 15 through 21. Vega set the clipboard on the table and pulled a plastic sleeve of index cards. "Logs are complete for 19. She glanced at me. "You the grandson I am," I said. "All right," she said softly. "Let's stay on paper." Harris rolled the microfilm forward. Pages flickered, then settled on a column of ledger entries. "Fine. Ledger section 41207. The right margin held a council reference code. He zoomed. MTCO19 repeated in a neat ladder. Moreland and Tate. Compliance Office 2019. Vega said, "That's the code." Same year they updated the bylaw addendum. He waved at us, I said. Harris toggled to the foreclosure docket. A darker page filled the screen. Foreclosure instruction, HOA action. He pushed the magnifier to the footer. Prepared by Moreland and Tate, HOA Compliance Division. My throat stayed dry. Same firm handles fines and foreclosure. Not against the law, Vega said. But when rolls double, questions double. "What's your next question?" I pointed at the stamp pair. "Whether notice preceded fine." I unfolded the grievance copy we'd filed and set it beside the glass. "We claim it didn't." "Then you stack your proof," Harris said. He slid a sleeve onto the stage-scanned emails from the HOA inbox obtained by a records request last week. Subject lines marched in neutral fonts. Friendly reminder grass, height. Courtesy compliance notice. The dates didn't lie. All were months apart, none near the day of the fine. Vega leaned in. "Where's the pre-fine notice for your address?" "Missing," I said. "Or never sent," Harris said. I lifted the UV wand over the space where the notice barcode should have been. Blank. If there was a door hanger, I said it didn't register. Door hangers that count? "Get scanned," Vega said. If the board admits they didn't scan, they admit it wasn't notice. Harris rolled the microfilm again slower until a small seal slid under the lens, a round emblem with M&T braided in script beside a line of numbers. He brought it into hard focus. On the facing plate, the fine ledger code shone. The emblem and the ledger aligned like 2 sights on the same barrel. He didn't speak. He just lifted an acetate and placed it between the plates so the seal cast a shadow across the ledger code. "Truth leaves a stamp," Harris said. I exhaled. That's our headline. Viral quote. "Truth leaves a stamp." Vega scratched a note. "You'll get pushback," she said. "Privacy claims. Counsel-client privilege." Privilege to whom I asked. "He's president on the fine and counsel on the next step." "Exactly why they'll say you're misreading roles," Vega said steady. "You don't argue privacy. You argue procedure." 802-07, notice, sequence, scan logs, put the clock on the table. Harris flipped to a board meeting transcript, printed pages with the gray of a photocopier tired of being asked to care. He pointed where the compliance division presented efficiencies. The same initials curled at the margins. He held that page, then slid in another, a retainer renewal between the HOA and Moreland and Tate. On its edge, someone had initialed twice. The loop on the L didn't blink. "Against the law?" I asked again. Vega shook her head. "Against daylight. Minnie Cliff." "Not illegal. Against daylight." We layered the plat overlay back on the deed. Harris lined the boundary of our lot with a pencil, the graphite soft and sure. The boundary pin I'd seen under the rock at the fence corner lined exactly where the plat thought it would be. A clean geometry that didn't apologize. "You bring this to the public hearing," Harris said, tapping the overlay, then the ledger image, then the retainer page. "You let them read it into the record. And if they try to call it harassment," I asked. "You talk procedure again," Vega said. "Notice, scan, sequence. You never say the word scam. You never call him names. You point at the clock." I nodded. The film whirred. Harris stilled the wheel. The projector hum cut off with a soft click. The sudden quiet made the room expand. Silent beat the hum was gone. Harris lifted the overlay and slid in one last sheet, foreclosure instruction template. On its left margin, prepared by M&T. On its right, a blank for Board President confirmation. The blanks sat inches apart on the glass, waiting for the same hand. He locked the image, then printed. The small printer coughed 3 times and surrendered warm paper. "I'll pack you a show and tell," Harris said. He stacked pages, stamp pair ledger code retainer renewal template with twin blanks. He clipped them with a binder clip and handed the neat packet to Vega. Vega checked the sequence. "This is clean," she said. "If they argue privacy, you keep to procedure and timestamps." She looked at me. "People will say filming meetings is rude. They'll say names shouldn't be said out loud. You stay respectful and visible." "Policy isn't rude," I said. "It's a boundary." She smiled just a little. "Good. Stay on that lane." Harris slid a request for public hearing form beneath my hand. Date, subject 3 sentences. No adjectives. I wrote, "Request hearing to review HOA 12-07 Notice Compliance Counsel of Record Sequence and Conflict Policy." I signed the pen, scratching like a saw beginning its cut. Vega initialed receipt. "I'll witness submission," she said. "No one loses a form today." Harris rethreaded the microfilm and labeled the print set with a sticky tab, Lang hearing packet. He squared the corners like a carpenter sighting a post. Outside the archive window, a bulletin about the county fair swayed under air conditioning, a photo of a pie contest pinned beside a notice for passport hours. Ordinary life, stapled and dated. I slid the packet into my folder next to Grandpa's notice. The weight pressed my palm. "I'll see him," I said. Where Harris asked deadpan. Under the fluorescence. Cliff, "I'll see him under the fluorescence." The HOA hall buzzed like trapped bees under humming tubes. Folding chairs scraped tile. Paper smelled warm, copier fresh. I stood beside Harris. Our folder marked HOA 12-07 waited on the table. Clive adjusted his tie gavel, poised. "Meeting to order," he said. Mike squeaked, lights hummed. A folded deed on his desk glinted the same seal I'd pulled from our mailbox. First comment the secretary called. "Lang Creek, Lot 12. I stepped up. My grandfather was fined $50. No prior notice violating HOA 12-07. I lifted the stamped page. "We filed grievance yesterday. Here's the record." Clive smiled for the cameras. "Proceed. The bylaw requires written notice before fine." There was none. He tapped his clipboard. Process followed. Harris clicked the projector. The notice filled the wall, his signature twice president and legal consult. Phones rose, gasps slid through the room. Clive's grin thinned. "This is taken from your own file," Harris said. He flipped to the retainer page, Moreland and Tate, HOA, Compliance Division. A low murmur spread. I said, "One man can't approve and prosecute the same fine." Clive leaned toward the mic. "Our counsel advises counsel," I asked. "That's still you." Laughter rippled, then hushed. Mrs. Holt spoke from row 2. "So, you billed us to fine us?" He looked at her. "Order, please." "Order," she said. "We're the dues." The hall smelled of dust and lemon cleaner heat rising from lights. Harris laid the plat overlay on the stage. Lines glowed like veins across the paper. "This," he said, "is the lot map. And this click, the fine ledger. Same firm seal, same stamp." Clive stiffened. "You're breaching privacy." Comment trigger. "Privacy versus exposure. Transparency isn't rudeness," I said. "Secrecy is." "Policy keeps order," he said. "Policy without daylight breeds rot." Phones recorded. Someone whispered. Finally, someone saying it. Harris zoomed the screen. Received 03, 17, Pierre 1207, duplicated across the deed and ledger. Vega, standing at the back, called out, "Two agencies, same clock." Clive swallowed. Coincidence. Harris paper doesn't do coincidence. The mic crackled. The air went heavy. Minnie Cliff paper doesn't do coincidence. Clive raised the gavel. "We're not here for theater." "This isn't theater," I said. "It's record." I laid the grievance copy on the table. "Void the fine and establish a conflict policy. That's all we ask." A neighbor in cap asked, "You allowed to film this public meeting?" Vega said. "Sunshine rule." Another voice. "Then let it shine." Clive's jaw set. "The board will deliberate privately." "No," Mrs. Holt said. "You started in public. You end in public." Hands clapped once, twice. Harris pointed at the screen again, calm. "Procedure says notice. Fine. Counsel. Your order is reversed. That's conflict." Clive's voice cracked. "This is taken out of context." Projector zoomed tighter. Moreland and Tate in the 30-inch letters. Beneath it, both his titles. Minnie Cliff, 2 lines. One hand. Silence. Even the lights buzzed softer. I faced him. "We just want fairness, not spectacle." His knuckles whitened on the gavel. "Will Mrs. Holt cut in vote Clive?" Another neighbor rose. "Yeah, vote. Right now." The secretary looked to him, then to the crowd. "Motion to void, fine, and review conflict policy." "Second," someone said. Clive hesitated. "Discussion, no," came from half the room. All in favor, dozens of hands rose like sails catching wind. The secretary's voice shook. Motion passes. Applause rolled brief, unpolished reel. Silent beat, 3 seconds of breathing, and hum alone. Clive struck the gavel once more. The crack echoed off linoleum. Meeting adjourned. He started to leave. Harris leaned into the mic, voice level steady. Paper outlives noise. Viral. Quote. A hush followed longer than applause. Phones caught the sound of fluorescent hum and the slow scrape of chairs. I closed the folder. The keys to the display cabinet clinked as Harris dropped them in my hand, metal cool. Certain. "Symbol of record," he whispered. I nodded. Finally, I said, "Someone fought back." Minnie Cliff. Gavel fades, truth stays lit. Judge Harlan's voice carried like gravel across the paneled room. Case number 2418H. Homeowners Association versus Lang family. Microphones echoed the syllables back thin and metallic. The court recorder's machine purred on the desk like a cat that never slept. Harris sat to my right shoulder's square pen still. I set the 12-07 folder on the table. A reporter slid into the second row notebook, open phone angled low. The clerk stood by the bench, hand hovering over a square metal stamp as if it had a temperature. Appearances, the judge said. Harris rose. Harris K. for the complainant observing. Homeowner present. He tipped his head toward me. The HOA counsel's chair was occupied by a junior associate, not Clive. The man adjusted his tie twice before speaking. Evan Price for the association. Harlan nodded once. Proceed. The clerk read a new filing in a neutral voice. Conflict of interest disclosure. The same individual acted as HOA president and filing attorney on enforcement notices tied to 812-07. Notice sequencing irregularities alleged. Request for injunctive relief and policy review. I felt my palm go damp on the tabletop. Harris didn't look at me. He looked at the judge. Price cleared his throat. Your Honor, these are administrative defects at most. The fine has already been voided. No relief is necessary. Harlan turned a page. Paper rasped. Counsel, the record shows identical signatures stacked president and legal consult. Why? Price pushed his glasses. Efficiency, Your Honor. Efficiency, Harlan repeated flat as a floor. And notice, door hanger, Price. Said, likely misplaced. Harris rose. No scan in the log, no courtesy email, no door hanger photo. The sequence is reversed. Harlan's finger paused over a photocopy. Received 0317, stared back in duplicate 1 stamp for the clerk 1 for the HOA. He frowned and let a slow breath out his nose. I see the 2 clocks. The clerk set a thin stack on the bench a proposed order. The judge didn't touch it yet. Harris spoke again, voice even. Relief is modest. A narrow injunction against dual-role execution in enforcement matters mandatory notice before fine and board adoption of a conflict policy. Remedy to match the harm, Harlan said. Price tried a smile. Your Honor, an injunction suggests wrongdoing. The association seeks harmony. Harlan looked up. Harmony is earned. He turned back to the stamp. The metal reflected the bars of the overhead lights like a tiny jail. The reporter scribbled, then glanced at the recorder's spinning reels. A cough echoed from the gallery and died against wood. Harlan addressed me directly. You're the grandson. Yes, Your Honor. What do you want from this court? Not revenge, I said. Procedure. In daylight. Price shifted. Your Honor. Harlan's palm lifted an inch. Silence fell cleanly. Harris slid 1 page forward. The retainer renewal lists Moreland and Tate as compliance division and sets them to receive enforcement referrals. The fine ledger uses the same firm seal. The foreclosure instruction template includes a blank for board president confirmation. The signatures match. The order we propose prevents that loop. Harlan traced the loop of a cursive L with his eyes. The mark had dragged in the same place on every page. He set a fingertip there as if to feel the rut under paper. Justice doesn't shout. It stamps, Harris said softly. Viral, quote, Justice doesn't shout, it stamps. The judge lifted his pen. Price tried again. Respectfully, Your Honor. Respect is what the rules get. Harlan said. Not excuses. He signed the order. The pen made a slow, certain noise, then glanced at the clerk. The clerk raised the stamp. Time seemed to lean toward it. For a heartbeat, everyone stilled me, Harris. Price the reporter, even the recorder light. The metal came down. Thud, received, 0317, bloomed in dark ink at the bottom of the order. Silent beat the stamp's echo spread through wood and microphone stems, then ebbed to the hum of the recorder. Harlan slid the signed pages to the edge of the bench. Bailiff, he said. The bailiff took the order, crossed the aisle, and posted the notice on the board outside the rail with 2 pushpins. The paper sat perfectly square, not one corner hungry for air. The room exhaled as though it had been forgetting to breathe for months. Mini cliff order on the board. Air returns. Price tugged his cuffs. We request a stay, Your Honor, to consider appeal. Denied, Harlan said without weight. This is procedural. You wanted harmony. Here is tempo. The reporter raised a hand slightly. Public copy, she asked the clerk. Available after docket, the clerk said already collating duplicates. Harlan flipped the file closed. Conflict policy due in 30 days. Dual signatures barred in enforcement. Notice: before, fine, door hanger scan, or certified mail. Violations will void. Costs to the association. Price swallowed. Understood. Harlan looked at him for a steady beat. Tell your board meetings to stay under the lights. He turned to me again. Son, your grandfather keeps his house. If anyone whispers otherwise, show them the stamp. I nodded once. The words landed like a hand on a shoulder that had needed it. Harris packed the folder crisp and quiet. From his pocket he produced a small manila envelope and slid it to me. It had a metal tab and a label typed years ago, Clubhouse Display, Spare Keys. Partial, he murmured. Treasurer passed them along after the vote. The rest change hands when the policy does. Keys, partial metal cool against my palm. Promise not trophy. Price gathered his papers without looking up. The reporter's pen scraped a last line. The recorder clicked a new counter number. Anything further? Harlan asked. Harris shook his head. Nothing further. Your Honor. Harlan stacked the case file and aligned it with the bench's edge like a carpenter sighting a cut. File closed, he said, and then he looked at me, the corners of his mouth barely moving. Justice, open. Cliff, file closed. Justice, open. 3 weeks later, the clubhouse smelled of burnt coffee and new paper. Morning light hit the metal folding chairs brighter than I remembered. A white poster board hung near the podium, HOA refund hearing public record. Neighbors filled every row, work boots, denim, gray hair thermoses on knees. The hum of the air unit mixed with quiet conversation. Harris sat up front beside a woman I hadn't met before, the new treasurer, Morales. She adjusted the mic. This meeting is convened to finalize restitution for enforcement errors under Charter 1207. Her voice trembled once, then steadied. We'll begin with the refund summary. Stacks of checks waited in manila envelopes. One by one, she read names aloud. Each neighbor came forward, signed left lighter. The printer smell, the shuffle of paper, the faint echo of fluorescent ballast, it all felt cleaner somehow. From the back, I watched Mrs. Holt wipe her eyes with a grocery receipt. Someone patted her shoulder. A few men nodded toward me, not quite smiles, just small gestures that said, "We saw it." Harris rose when Morales finished the list. I've been asked to read a statement approved by the board. He unfolded a single page and adjusted his glasses. The board acknowledges procedural conflicts in prior enforcement. We affirm all refunds at 100%. We regret the lapse and commit to transparent process under open record. His voice was calm, courtroom steady, but there was warmth under it now. The room stayed silent for a second before the first clap started soft, then joined by dozens more until the air itself seemed to loosen. Silent beat applause, fading papers rustling, chair legs scraping. Morales smiled at Harris. Anything to add? He nodded once, then reached into his folder and produced a plain white envelope. This one isn't from the association, he said. It's from the people in this room. He placed the envelope on the podium and looked my way. For your grandfather's house. The check lay visible through the paper window. My name and his side by side. I walked up, palms, damp throat tight. I didn't fight, I said quietly. I just refused to shut up. Someone in the back laughed a short, proud sound. Harris turned to the crowd. What matters isn't the fine, it's the stamp. The record stands. Justice doesn't shout, it stamps. Applause rose again, sharper this time, echoing against wood and glass. Phones caught it. Cameras blinked like quiet applause of their own. As it slowed, the air stilled again. I looked around the same hall that had once hummed with tension, now hummed with release. At the corner of the podium sat a small box labeled Keys. Harris opened it, held up the ring with the silver tag from the display cabinet. Symbolic handover, he said. Governance returned to daylight. Prop, state, keys. Reveal, plus seal, echo. He dropped the keys into my palm. Cool, metal, familiar weight. Morales tapped the mic. Meeting adjourned. Chairs began to fold, conversations restarting in low, easy tones. Someone passed around a tray of cookies. The burnt coffee was gone, replaced by something that actually smelled fresh. I turned back once more to the podium, the poster board, the sunlight across the floor. The old seal on the check glinted faintly. Received 0317. Echo of everything that started it. I whispered low enough only Harris could hear. Finally, someone fought back. He smiled just enough. "They'll remember," he said. Outside, the morning felt larger. Cars backed out of spaces, neighbors waved instead of staring. The air carried that faint scent of cut grass, again the sound of Grandpa's mower, somewhere deep in memory, steady and true. Morning light hit the new plaque bolted to the fence post. The metal caught gold and shadow by turns. In memory of Thomas Lang Justice. Served Vadir 12-07. The air smelled like cedar and grass clippings. Somewhere down the block, a mower droned a steady, low sound that matched the rhythm of the screwdriver in my hand. I tightened the last screw, stepped back, and let the wind take a corner of old paperwork from the porch. Pages fluttered, not away just far enough to remind me of the weight they once had. From the yard, the rebuilt gate looked different, less barrier, more boundary line, honestly drawn. The old post where the notice had hung was replaced with fresh wood. No fines, no warnings, no ink. Inside the fence, a few neighborhood kids were riding bikes in circles on the drive, their laughter mixing with the hum of the morning. Mrs. Holt waved from across the street. The same hand that once held a protest sign now held a mug of coffee. My phone buzzed on the porch rail. Harris's name lit the screen. "Still working?" he asked when I answered. "Last screw," I said. "County posted the policy this morning. Conflict clauses in full. They even used the same font." I laughed. "Classic." "You changed precedent," he said. "You realize that—" "It wasn't me. It was the paper." Pause. Just breath static and faint birdsong. Then his voice again lower. "Paper doesn't lie. Remember that." I turned toward the house. On the wall near the entry hung the framed deed, the same one we'd pulled from the clerk's microfilm. Next to it, Grandpa's photo in black and white eyes caught mid-smile. Under the frame, the keys from the clubhouse rested on a small hook, metal cool initials engraved, each prop finding its place. Prop, arc notice. Deed, keys. I reached out and straightened the frame. For a second, the glass reflected both faces, his and mine, blended by light from the open door. On the porch, the recorder blinked red. I pressed play. The file was labeled Hearing 0317. Static cracked softly like rain on foil. Then, the familiar sound gavel mic squeak, Harris's voice reading into the record. "Paper outlives noise." I smiled, letting the line fade beneath the next, the judge's gravel tone, the applause that followed the breath of 100 neighbors exhaling at once. Mini cliff sound, fading. Air, refilling. The wind picked up again, flipping one sheet of the old notice across the step. It landed, face-up stamp, still legible, received 0317. I slipped it under the plaque glass, sealing the loop. From behind the fence, one of the kids called out, "Mr. Lang, is that your grandpa's name?" "Yeah," I said. "He mowed this yard before any of us knew what bylaws were." The boy nodded solemnly, as if honoring something he couldn't yet name. Birds sang from the power line. The smell of cut grass deepened. I leaned against the post, sunlight sharp on metal letters. "History fits on paper," I said quietly. Viral, quote, "History fits on paper." Silent beat, the wind paused. For a heartbeat, nothing moved but light. Then the radio on the porch hummed to life, old country static, a warm buzz under the sound of morning. I let it play while I gathered the stray pages, folded them once, and set them in the drawer with the certified receipts. Echo and Legacy 1, Scene 1, quiet close. As I stepped back toward the gate, the plaque caught the sun again. The letters shone clean and final. Under the hum of the mower, under the low song of the radio, one line threaded through it all, the same line that had carried us here. Finally, someone fought back. The morning light gleamed on the brass plaque, its edges warm against the gate, in memory of Thomas Lang Justice. Served 412-07. The air smelled of cedar and ink, the same scent that once followed the stamped notice. I could still hear the echo of that seal hitting paper the moment a system learned accountability. What began as outrage ended as order. The law had drawn its own clean line. History fits on paper, and sometimes healing does too. Finally, someone fought back. Share your HOA story below your map might help someone redraw theirs.